Hey everyone, it's Jack, and today I want to take a look at something really cool. It's Distrobox. Yeah, Distrobox. This is a GitHub project that allows you to run different distributions in a container. And so this is really cool. I like this because I got to thinking with something like Distrobox, I could run a distro like Fedora or Linux Mint or something like that and still have access to the AUR. How cool is that? And so I want to try that in kind of that context. I've heard of Distrobox before, but I never actually really got down and tried to use it or really look into it. So now I really want to do this. And since I was kind of exploring GitHub anyway, I almost kind of stumbled across it. And well, thanks to Derek actually over at DistroTube, because he was talking about fork bombs, and that kind of got me looking around on GitHub for some other cool stuff. So I appreciate that. In fact, I even left him a comment saying that, that was a great video because it was exceptional. And as a response, he kind of left this on my doorstep, a fork. And a little note there that says something about, just wanted to pay you back for fixing, in quotes, my monitors last spring. I don't remember that. Oh, that's when I chainsawed his monitors in half so he wouldn't have to move his mouse all the way over to the right side. I get it. All right. Yeah, I totally forgot about that. But a fork? I'm still not getting it. Unless it's a response to his fork bomb video, humor attempt or something. Well, you really got to work on your humor. But still, it's a thought that counts, so I really... Why, you... Very funny. Turn it off. Turn it off. Okay, it's the next day, and I managed to get all cleaned up and the debris removed from my room and everything. And, well, I had time to cool down and think about it. And I like a practical joke as much as the next guy. So, yeah, it was mildly funny. But I do have a little PTSD happening now. I mean, last night when I had dinner, I had to use a spoon because this thing about forks now. As if I didn't already have another phobia to deal with, and that's the fear of running full speed backwards into a brass doorknob. But now, yeah, I got this one too, added to my plate. Fear of forks. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. Oh, well, I'll get over it. Onward and upward. So, Distrobox. I'm going to test this out in Linux Mint, I think. The really cool thing about this is if you're running something like Debian or Fedora Silverblue, some kind of immutable system where you can't write to it, RPM free isn't always perfect, and COPR is kind of adequate for extra stuff, but it can't compare to the AUR at all. When you're in situations where you want something cutting edge or just not available anywhere else except having to build it yourself or get it out of the AUR, I think this would be great because I find myself in those kind of situations all the time. In fact, I remember a few weeks ago, I was trying to add the OBS background removal plugin on Fedora. And actually, if you're out at their website, there's actually no build instructions at all for any kind of RPM-based system. It's only related to Debian and Arch. And of course, on Arch, it's freely available. All you got to do is just download it right from the AUR and you're good to go. On a Debian-based system, you got to build it, but it works. And on Fedora, I actually kind of converted all the dependencies over to the Fedora versions and kind of got it all downloaded and successfully built it, but I could not get it to work. Even checking my logs, I kept troubleshooting the problem, and I finally got it to where it would recognize the module itself. However, it still would not incorporate it into the plugin. According to the OBS logs, it couldn't find the source ID for the background removal plugin. And so it was something that eventually I just kind of said, forget it. I'm putting way too much time into it. So I never did get it solved. And so Fedora was just kind of a no-go for using that. And so that's just kind of one scenario that I could probably relate this to. In fact, I might even just do an OBS install with the plugin and see how well they carry over. With Distrobox, you can actually take these things and install an app, let's say from the AUR, and then export it into your main operating system. So it just kind of links it right into this, and it uses very low resources, these images. And another thing you want to keep in mind, that these images, like containers, I guess is probably a better word, like if you have Arch on here and I did some kind of install, you still want to be careful what you put on, because these containers are not sandboxed or isolated. So if you put something dangerous on your system that could crash your system, don't think that you're going to be safe because it's in a Distrobox container. It may very well hose your system. So you do want to use a little common sense when using Distrobox. And Distrobox actually is kind of like a wrapper around Docker or Podman, if I understand it correctly. So that's really interesting. Enough of my babbling. Let's jump in and check it out. Okay, so now I'm inside my Linux Mint install here, and I'm running Mint 21.1 here, Cinnamon. So I'm just going to close this, and we're going to go ahead and try this on a Mint and access the AUR using the Distrobox container. But first, we got to get everything set up. So let me open up a terminal here real quick, and then I also want to open up my web browser and pop out to the Distrobox GitHub website, which I'll have a link in the description below. So here I am at github.com in the Distrobox site here on GitHub. So cool. Here we have our Distrobox README file, and then these are the different files here. And if we go over the README file, here you can see that we have all these different containers that are available in this picture here anyway. And so we got things like Alma Linux and Fedora, Debian, Ubuntu, Arch, of course, which is what I want to work with today. To me, running Arch from a non-Arch distro seems like the biggest motivation for me anyway. But if you want to be an Arch and then, you know, have access to like the Debian stuff in the terminal, then you can do that too, or with Fedora and so forth. So, and you can run multiple containers as well, which is really cool. And then, of course, it looks like it's documented pretty good, too. Here we got our glossary here with the installation, alternative methods, dependencies, compatibility, usage, and all this good stuff. So lots of things to go through. And then here's got your most popular commands here, like Distrobox create, enter, list, and so forth. If you want to get out of a container, too, if you just want to discontinue a session that you might be in the console, you can just type log out, and then it'll put you back to your normal console. Lots of good stuff. And then they go on down here to show some other use cases where people might be interested, especially like if you're using an immutable OS like Endless or Fedora Silverblue, OpenSUSE Micro OS or Steam OS. The immutable OSs, I don't know, I've played with those a little bit, like with Silverblue, and they're kind of cool, but you got to use like RPM free, I think it's called. I can't remember. RPM free maybe. And that allows you to like install apps kind of locally, but it's kind of in its own container as well. Can be a little clunky. So this is a really great scenario for using a Distrobox if you're in an immutable system as well. It can kind of solve some issues there. We can export our installed apps into our main operating system. So how cool is that? Install something from the AUR or export it right into Mint, and then I can just go right into the Mint menu and just launch it right from inside the menu. So that is really cool. Let's get started. So the first thing I want to do, since I'm here in GitHub, is I want to go up and select the code box here, and I'm going to select this little copy icon and copy this address, the Git address. And then I'm going to go into my console, and I'm just going to make that a little bigger here. And then I'm going to magnify it a bit, kind of make it more readable. And the first thing you want to do is you want to make sure you have Git installed. And I do already, but in an Ubuntu or Debian-based system, that would be sudo apt install a Git. Once you got Git installed, we're going to do a Git clone. So I'm going to type Git clone, and then I'm going to right click and paste in the address that I copied from the Git website. And then we'll press enter and we'll install Distrobox. Well, actually it adds the thing in here. And then all we got to do, if we do an ls here, then we can see that Distrobox has now been added, cloned to our drive here. So I'm just going to change directory into Distrobox. And then from inside Distrobox, all we got to do is run /install. And that will install Distrobox just like that, instantaneously practically. And so now it's reminding us that we should actually add our path in here as well, our environment variable. But before I do that, I want to install a container. So you can use Distrobox with either Docker or Podman. And for me, I kind of prefer Podman. So I'm going to do a sudo apt install Podman and hit authenticate. And then we'll get in Podman installed here. And then I'll press enter for yes. And we'll let that do its thing. And that'll get us our container application for Distrobox. And there we go. We got Podman all installed. So that is good. Now we can set our path. So to set our path variable, that's got to include the Podman. So I'm going to just type in export and then $path, all uppercase. And there's my putty. Well, hi, Petey. Petey came up to see me. I guess he missed me. So, yeah. Have a lap there, Petey. So export path equals, and then in quotes, we're going to do a home variable. So $home, all uppercase, /.local, /podman, /bin, colon, and then $path, our path variable again. And then we're going to close that in quotes and press enter. And then if we change out of this and go back to our home directory, which we can just cd space dot, then if we type Distrobox, if it's in the path, then we should know right here. So I type Distrobox and it is in the path because it actually responded. So very cool. Showing us a list of our available commands and so forth. So next we can create our container. So to do that, it's quite easy actually. All we got to do is type Distrobox -create and then space, and then we're going to do a -n. That means name. So we're going to name our container. You can also do a double hyphen and just spell out name if you want. And so we're going to call our container Arch. That way it's easy to identify. If we were going to install Ubuntu, I'd probably just name it Ubuntu. And then we're going to do a -i. This is going to be the image that we're going to download and install. And in this case, it's going to be Archlinux. And also on the Distrobox website, they do also have a link there where you can see all the different distros that are available through Distrobox. Okay, I had to pause the video there for a minute because my furnace was kicking on, and so I had to pause it so it wouldn't make so much noise. Anyways, where was I? Distrobox create. So this will actually pull the Archlinux ISO and install it. So I'm going to hit enter, and voila, it is finished that quick. So it created a container called Arch. And so now all we got to do is type in the command that's showing right here, Distrobox, enter Arch, and then it'll put us inside that container. Right now you can see that we have toadwake at toadwake dash standard PC, blah, blah, blah. That's our Mint terminal. But if I do this and type in Distrobox and then enter Arch, which is the container that we created, then it is now putting us inside an Arch terminal. So right now, since this is the first time we ever ran this, it's installing the basic packages for Archlinux. So we're going to get that installed, and it's going to just kind of do its thing here for about a minute. It takes roughly a minute at the most, I think, give or take. And not even that. So there you go. It's all complete. So set up all the very basic packages that we have in here, and we are now in an Arch terminal. So if I was going to do something like sudo pacman -syy, I guess I got to spell Pac-Man right first. And then you can see that we're running Pac-Man on Linux Mint. So this is like this container kind of reminds me of a subsystem like in Windows, like WSL, Windows subsystem for Linux there. And this is kind of what this reminds me of, is like a Linux subsystem for Linux. So cool. So now what do we got to do next? First thing I want to do is I want to fix our locale, because by default the locales aren't right in the Linux Arch install here. And so that could cause problems potentially if you were installing certain types of software that depend on your locale being correct. So that's the thing I want to address, I think, first. And what I want to do is I'm going to start out by editing the locale.gen file. But first I need an editor. So I'm going to download Nano. And of course you can download Vim if you prefer Vim, but I'm a Nano person. So I'm going to do a sudo pacman hyphen uppercase S Nano, and I'm going to go with yes. And now that we got Nano installed, I'm going to do a sudo nano /etc /locale.gen gen. And then here we have our gen file, and this entire file is all commented out. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go down here and just make a little bit of space here. And I'm going to kind of type some things in here manually. So the first thing I'm going to type is c.utf8. So that'll be an uppercase c.utf-8, and then a space, and then utf-8. And then on our next line, I'm going to type in en underscore uppercase us dot utf-8, and then a space utf-8. And that should do it for this. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to press Control O to write this out, and press enter, and then Control X to exit. Now what we're going to do is almost the same command. We're going to do sudo nano /etc/locale.conf. And then this will put us in a conf file. And so now we have this in here already, but I'm going to take lang and I'm going to just delete that part of it. And I'm going to replace it with lc underscore collate, all uppercase. And then the rest of it is good there. And then on the next line, I'm going to type in lang equals, and lang is all uppercase, en underscore us, which is uppercase, dot utf-8. And I think that looks right. So I'm going to save that. So I'm going to do Control O and write that file out, and then Control X. And now if I type in locale space -a, whoops, wait a minute. What I'm doing is I'm checking the validity of the locale file, but first I got to regenerate the locale database. So first I got to run locale, actually sudo locale-gen, and then press enter. And now it's going to generate my locales here based on what we entered in those two config files. And so that looks like that generated just fine. So now I'm going to do a locale space -a and press enter. And now we can see that it didn't give me any kind of errors or anything. So that all looks good. So our locale now is updated and so forth. Now we just got to activate it in our system. So we can just do that on the fly by typing source space /etc/profile and press enter. And then that'll activate our locale. So now our locale should be all set. So that'll kind of solve that. So we won't see any locale errors when we're installing different things. And the next thing I want to do is we want to have yay activated on here, because we're going to need yay to access the AUR directly. So I think yay actually has a folder already in here. So I'm going to just do an ls, and it is. So yay just kind of comes with this, which is nice. I like that. So cool. We're going to change directory into yay, and then we're just going to install it by typing make pkg space -si, and then this will install our yay, and then yay, we'll be set up. Oh, can't find the okay, maybe that's got to be a sudo. So let me do sudo make pkg space -si. Let's try that again. Nope, I was right the first time. So what's up? Okay, I think before I mess with any of these installs and all that, I think I might need to maybe initialize my secret keys. So let me just do a sudo pacman -key space double hyphen init, and we'll just init our keys here, and maybe that's kind of what the deal is. Okay, cool. And then I think just for good measure, I'm going to do a sudo pacman space hyphen uppercase SYY and just kind of let that update. And let's try that again. So we're still in the yay directory, and so we're just going to go with make pkg space si again. See if we have better luck. Negative. And just going to make sure there's something in here. Yeah, okay, we're good. Wait a minute here. I think I see what's going on. I didn't install my essentials. So silly, I'm jumping the gun here. So I'm going to cd space ... back out of here. And I need to install my essentials. So the first thing I need to do is sudo pacman. And I already did my key, pacman key init. So that's good. So pacman -s. And then we need to install like base devel. So we'll install that, and Python we're gonna need, and Git, we'll install Git, and maybe Neopatch. And then this will kind of give us all our real essentials here that we kind of need. And then I'm gonna just default with all. So I'm gonna just hit enter and install everything, and then enter again to go with yes. And so we'll install all this stuff, and then we can put in yay. I got ahead of myself, so that's all it was. That should solve the mystery, I'm sure. Otherwise, my name isn't Fred Flintstone. Yes. And so there we go. Everything's installed, looking good. And now we can change into our yay folder. Actually, I could have stayed there, really. But now if we run make package, make pkg space -si, it should work. So let's see how it goes this time. We should get different results anyways. And there we go. That's what I like to see. So I'm just going to default with the yes there, and that should do the trick. So now if I just type in yay and press enter, we can see that it repopulates the database, synchronizes it, and nothing to do. So yay is working. So now I'm going to just back out of the yay folder. Now we are ready to install something. So this is cool. I'm getting more excited by the second. So yes, I was talking earlier about OBS-Studio, and I'm kind of curious to see if I can install OBS-Studio with a plugin that's only really readily available on Arch, but you can also build it in a Debian-based distro like Linux Mint. But it's a lot more work than if you were just going to download it from Arch. So now that we got ourselves all set up with Distrobox, let's just try it. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to do, first of all, I'm going to install OBS-Studio using pacman. So I'm just going to do a sudo pacman -s obs-studio. And then I'm just going to go with the default there, the Jack 2. I think that's installed by default here in Arch. And then yes, so that all looks good. And by the way, in some distros, you might have to install Xhost on your system from within your system, I think, depending on what you're running. But some systems you might have to install Xhost so that you can run GUI apps. But in this case, on Mint with the Arch here, I don't think we got to do that. So it should just run. So there we go. So now if I was going to type OBS and just press enter, then there we go. And it was fast. You never know that came out of a container. Now let's install that OBS background removal. Like if I was going to open up another instance here, a different console window, like if I chose new window and went back into my Linux Mint console, if I wanted to install OBS background removal, if I did a sudo apt search OBS-background removal, then you won't get any results. It doesn't find anything because it's not out there. Now, let's look for it in Arch. So I'm going to do a yay space OBS-background removal and press enter. And here we got a result. So we have a Git version and the actual OBS version. And so I'm going to go with choice 1 there. I'm going to press 1. I could have also used yay-s, uppercase S, and then the OBS background removal just to directly choose that. But if you're never really 100% sure what the result's going to be, you can just leave out the -s and then it'll give you a list of all the variations that are available. So I'm going to go with one, press that, and then you could say yes here, but I'm just going to press enter because it's quicker. And just keep pressing enter to get all the defaults and then press enter again for yes. And then this will build our OBS background removal. And then if I run OBS again, it should be in there. So now it's doing its thing. It's just kind of building this, and this won't take long, actually, just that long. So very quick. So now if I run OBS and this guy opens up, here we got OBS-Studio, and I added in Gphoto Live Preview and Video Capture device here off camera real quick, just to save a little bit of time. So if I go into Video Capture device, which I added off camera, and I go into filters, then if I go up here to audio video filters and hit the plus button, you can see background removal is there. So if I select it and then hit OK, we have our OBS background removal. Of course, I don't have a camera hooked up to this instance of OBS-Studio, but it is there and you can see all the controls and everything. So it did install successfully. So I'm going to exit out of there. Now, what if I want to run this from within Mint? Well, let me just shrink the console down a little bit and get her out of the way. And then we'll minimize our browser, and I'll even close it. So if you go in here into our menu, you can see that there's no OBS-Studio, but we can export it right out of our container into Linux Mint. So all I got to do that is to type in Distrobox and then export space and then -A, or you can do double -app, and then, because A stands for app, and then the name of your app. In this case, it's OBS-Studio, or OBS would be the actual app name. If I type it wrong, like that, then it's going to let me know that it's an invalid. Whoops, I forgot the hyphen. Okay, let's do that again. So it's Distrobox -export, and then space -A for app, and then the name of the app is OBS. Press enter, and there you go. It says application OBS successfully exported, and then it'll appear in your applications list in a few seconds, which is pretty much instantaneously. So now if we go down here, sound and video, there you can see OBS-Studio and in parentheses on Arch. So it's kind of letting us know on Arch that this is our Arch install. Nice. So let's try and see if it launches. So I'm going to click on it, and with luck, there it is. Nice. So now we have not only the latest and greatest version of OBS-Studio on Linux Mint, which would probably have like 27 from their repos, but we should also have our working OBS background removal filter here. And there it is. So beautiful. OBS. Nice. And that's just one of many things we could install on here from the Arch repo, because now we just have access to it. And a lot of times there's something available on Arch that you can't find in a snap pack or a flat pack. So now you got access to the Arch. Yes, this is great. So yeah, I mean, like another thing on Mint, maybe you were an Arch user in the past and you liked Popcorn Time. There's a cool app. You know, that's an app where you can kind of stream movies and so forth. And it's really not available in Mint. I mean, if I was going to look for it in Mint, it's just not there. You can't get it unless you want to build it. But in Arch, no problem. All we'd have to do is, yay, Popcorn Time, press enter, and then it shows it right here. One. And just press enter for the defaults and let it do its thing. And once it's built, you're good to go. Okay, and that installed there. I had to pause my video too because my furnace came back on again. Winter will do that to you. So anyways, that installed Popcorn Time. And now if we run the same command, our Distrobox -export space -A, or you could do double -app space Popcorn Time, then that will be exported as well. So we could pop over here again, sound and video, and there it is, Popcorn Time. So now if I run this and it's showing that it's on Arch, it will come right in, just like that. Nice. So now we have Popcorn Time. And so that's another example where it's really cool to be able to have access to the AUR if you're in something like Debian, Mint, Ubuntu, or Fedora, and you want to be able to just easily get stuff like this. A lot of these niche softwares here, you just can't find in a typical Snap or Flatpak app image or anything like that. You either got to find it and build it yourself or do without. So this is really fantastic. And Fedora, I think, is kind of one of my favorite alternatives to Arch. And so this is something I could see myself using in Fedora as well. Something like Nobara Linux is a great Fedora-based distro that I think this would be wonderful in. And a lot of Fedora users might say, well, why not just use Toolbox? Because Fedora, like I think Silverblue, has Toolbox built in, which is essentially a Linux subsystem as well. But there is a few differences. I think Distrobox is a little more flexible in that I think Toolbox only uses Podman, whereas in Distrobox you also have the option to use Docker as well if you wish. And also you get a lot easier access to other distros. In Fedora, of course, you get access to a Fedora subsystem. And even though you can set up other distros, it's not so straightforward. So Distrobox really kind of takes the pain out of that. So yeah, I mean, it depends, again, on your needs. If you don't have needs to be on Arch and, niche software and so forth, then you're just fine with Toolbox. However, for the rest of the world, yes, Distrobox. That is the way to go. That's awesome. Especially in this case. Of course, this video is really intended just to show you how to access the AUR through Distrobox, and then, also how to install it and set it up and get to that point. And so as far as all the other features of Distrobox and all that, that could be maybe a subject for another video possibly, but this video is really intended just to kind of show you how to do this. And we did it. So that is cool. And again, whether you're running Mint, Fedora, Debian, or some other distro, and you have all the universe of AUR available to you, then this is really a great option to do. And for me, it's just pretty bad to the bone. I guess I'm just going to do one other test, though. I'm kind of curious as whether this service just starts up automatically if we're just kind of these containers are available. Like, for example, if I close out of here, well, actually, I'll log out first. So we'll type in log out. And that puts us back into our Linux Mint terminal. So I'm just going to close the terminal and then close my Firefox. And I'm going to go here and I'm just going to restart Mint. So I'm just going to do a restart here and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm at my console, my login screen here. So I'm just going to log in. And then without doing anything, I'm just going to close my welcome screen. And I'm just going to go directly over here to sound and video, and then just open one of these apps like Popcorn Time and see if it'll just launch. And there it is. For a second, I wasn't sure, but yes, there it is. So these are available. You don't have to actually go into your console and just manually go into your Docker container. The container is already there, available. So when we launch these shortcuts here, I think there's a command in the command line that will actually activate the Distrobox and then run it. So that's cool. Distrobox doesn't have to be like running in the background first before you can launch these. And that is really awesome. Loving it. And with that, I hope this quick overview on how to access the AUR on Arch and the install of Distrobox was helpful. And if it was, don't forget to give that thumbs up. Because I give Distrobox 2 thumbs up. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.